So this is, I've named the presentation a growth mindset culture, or how I learned to stop worrying and love the process. Which, if you haven't seen Dr. Strangelove, then it won't make sense, but you should go out and see it. The talk is all about how to build and strengthen a Trek-Hampton culture that puts people and the supportive relationships as the main priority, and focuses on the process of development to create a stronger community and to hopefully produce exciting international results. And when I started thinking about my approach to the work that we do at the club and the initiatives that I've introduced here, I realized that much of my philosophy around fencing and elite sport has roots to a quite specific time in my career, which is the year around the London Olympics. It was there that I got my first clear understanding that there has to be more to sport than the results that you produce. And what there is can be hugely motivational and impactful at the same time in itself. So I'd like to tell you the story of that time, and so kind of give you the origin story of my vision for the club that I'll come on to later. And hopefully I can also bring you on board for my own mission in all of this, which is to use elite sport as a vehicle for personal and social development. I think we will try and fit in a break halfway through, because I've filmed this before and watched it back, but it could take up to an hour. So if we have a little break to refresh, that might be a good idea. On the 1st of January 2012, I was at a training camp in New Jersey, along with my ever-present teammate and training partner Richard Cruz. It wasn't the highest level of sparring, but we were on our holiday, and they were paying us to be there. It was a lovely group of guys as well. We also knew that the next 8 months was going to get pretty intense. So 7 years earlier, in 2005, London won the bid to host the 2012 Olympics. A year after that, in 2006, I graduated from university and became a full-time athlete. So we already knew back then that we would have a team qualified for those Olympics, because the host nation gets certain guaranteed places. But those 6 years from 2006 to 2012 moved incredibly slowly. It's a strange thing to have this huge, very specific goal that you're working towards for such a long period of time. It just never seems to get any closer. But as we entered the Olympic year at this training camp in New Jersey, me and Richard, we could really start to feel it. We both had some senior medals to our name, and we'd both been in the top 16 of the world ranking. We had this professional setup in Britain in British fencing, which was aimed squarely at giving our team the best chance of a medal in the Games in August. And it was going to be fun, because we knew that a home Olympics was something special, and this was our hometown Olympics. And then, when we came home, in the first training session back with our squad in London, I tripped over in a fight, put my hand down to stop myself, and broke my wrist on my fencing hand. And life suddenly got a lot darker. What came next was 2 surgeries to put a metal screw in my hand. This is not actually my hand, I just found a picture. But I do have the x-rays somewhere that look a lot like that. 4 months without a foil in my hand, doing physical training every day, but without knowing whether there'd be enough time at the end of that to get back to any kind of fencing level, let alone an Olympic level. It was a dark time, but what also came next was something that kind of put me on a path that led to a lot more freedom and joy in my fencing. And a kind of a realization of what really matters in all of this. I started work with a fantastic new sports psychologist, and we did 6 months intensive work on how to deal with this setback. we tied it to my values and how I see myself and how I wanted to be. And through that work, it kind of allowed me to deal with this previously unthinkable situation of going from being a certainty in the team and a potential individual medal hope in the Olympics to being a reserve for the team, if anything at all. And it helped me realize that even though I wasn't going to be able to achieve that individual Olympic glory that I dreamed of, that I could still prove that I had the strength of character to create an experience that I could look back on with pride. That was also where the seed of focus on the process was planted in me. I might not even get a chance to compete in those Olympics, let alone get a result. So there had to be some benefit from that process leading up to it. And with the help of people around me, that seed grew quickly, and I realized that I had to pick myself up and throw myself into what I had left, which turned out to be a whole lot. My physical training meant that I was fitter than ever, and certainly one of the fittest in the competition. And I managed to pull myself through that dark period and become the positive, supportive teammate that my team needed me to be. This was my team back then. See, looking positive. When I did get called on to fence, it was in the quarterfinal against world number 1 Italy, and we managed to pull back a few points, but we ended up losing 45-41. I'll never ever forget the feeling of walking up onto the piste that day. And my Olympic debut ended up being one of the best days of my life. I was proud of how I performed, but much more proud of the character that I'd shown in the weeks and months leading up to it. Because I had fought against fear, regret, and jealousy every single day, and I'm not joking, every day for 8 months. And finally I could say that I'd won.
Nice.
I celebrated that day with my closest friends and family. This is from that day. These are my cousins and my cousin's wife and my 3 best friends. And this is my brother wearing my dad's Mexico Olympic tracksuit, which is much too small for him. But that was another thing that I came to realize in that period, was that the love and respect of the people that you care most about isn't affected by whether you win or lose. It sounds simple, but it can be an incredibly powerful realization. But that whole experience taught me so much about what there is to gain from elite sport aside from the medals. And it left me with a very clear impression of the importance of knowing that and consciously working with it. I've also seen a lot of friends retire from sport, and I've spoken to them about their experiences and asked them how they look back on their careers. And across the board, from world and Olympic champions to those who didn't really make a big impact on a senior level, they're all somewhat unsatisfied with the results they made, and they thought they had the potential to do a bit more. And that's how it goes. Medalists, they want to win gold. World champions, they want to win multiple world titles. And so if that's the case, if no one's quite satisfied with the results, then really what is the point of all this? Well, I've retired now as well, mostly. And I can say that I see the point as developing yourself as much as possible in all the ways that sport can, whilst also trying to do your best. That's the meaning that I see. And competitive sport is a fantastic tool for self-development. And in fact, I think there might not be a better tool, but it requires the right environment to unleash its full power in a positive sense. I've been working on my own mission and values as part of this course run by Team Copenhagen called Lille som mentalitetsudvikler. And that's where I came to define my own role, my own mission in all of this, which I brought up before, which I then took out again, apparently, of using sport as a vehicle for personal and social development. The social side of that, the social element, I think comes from creating individuals in a kind of caring, rounded, responsible way who go out into society and behave in a caring, responsible way. Much like here at the club, volunteering is a key part of the culture. So our fencers are brought up with this knowledge of the importance of giving back. But if personal development is the priority number one, then that means the results automatically gets kicked further down the list. And the glorious thing about a culture that takes focus away from the results and puts it squarely on the process of development is that that's also the best way of making great results. Because a too heavy result focus actually distracts us from performance. So if you're worrying about winning or losing or going up or down in the rankings, that's what leads to performance anxiety, to frustrating and distracting thoughts. It can make losses seem more significant and more painful. I've felt that myself. And it can make even the smallest setbacks feel like massive overarching failures. But a process focus that can take away the emotional power around thoughts of winning or losing, and it can free you up to perform your best. So my old adversary from the Russian team gave an interview just before the Russian Olympics, before the Rio Olympics. He was asked who he thought would win the team event, and he said, I'll repeat that. He said, not all of that. He said, it's not the team that wants to win the most that will win, but the team that wants most to bring their best fencing. Well, my vision for Trekanten is that we are the club in the world that most wants to bring our best to training, to competition, consistently living up to our best selves as individuals and as a community. Now, what does that look like? To me, that looks like fencers that take responsibility for their own training and their own development. We have this sign out there that says "Ta ansvar," take responsibility. We have all of our fencers traveling to competitions without parents most of the time, gaining independence. Fencers that have a clear idea of how they're feeling, what they want to work on each day. So a check-in, check-out board for part of that. The fencers have process goals written on pieces of paper on the wall in the cell, and I think mindfulness ties into that process as well. We have fencers that bring their best effort and attitude when they train, even when the coach is not looking. Effort and attitude is something I'm going to come back to. It's something I introduced very early on, and I'll talk a fair bit more later. Fencers that understand and accept making mistakes and coping with challenge and resistance as a natural and important part of development and performance. Sport offers countless opportunities for kids and young adults to try and to fail and to be faced with challenge and adversity in an incredibly safe environment. We should be setting up our kids with more challenges and more barriers to try and get over, rather than kind of peeling them down and flattening the way like the curling parent effect talks about. I'll just flip forward. I saw this and I thought, that's fantastic, because that's exactly what curling parent is. It's absolutely unnecessary removal of a barrier. It's wet, you get wet sometimes when you play sport. It's a very safe way to learn how to build a bit of toughness. He wants to take away that challenge, that small barrier from his child or grandchild maybe. At the club we have mindfulness training, and we have a strong focus on mental training to build this kind of mental toughness. we want our athletes, we're saying we want our athletes to be able to cope with difficult circumstances and against adversity. We don't want to take that away from them. We want it to be there, and we want to help them deal with it. Then we have fences that understand what fencing and sport means to them, what they can stand to gain apart from the results, praise, and fencing fame that there is. We started this values project with Coles and Anis. Hopefully you'll hear more about that from the fencers. And I'll talk more about values a bit later as well. Then finally we have fencers that burn to find out why they won or lost and what they can do to be better next time. And this desire to learn, to understand, to improve, that's what I see as the beating heart of any high-performing culture. It's also what I want to put front and center of everything that we do in Trekanten. Not only does it lead to a healthier, more thriving, and ultimately more successful environment, but it's also one of these kind of key pieces in a puzzle to well-being and fulfillment in life. And this concept is best described by the term growth mindset. Now, I wondered if we should take a break here, but I wasn't quite sure how long it would take to get here. So I think we'll push on through. No one's fallen asleep yet. The term growth mindset was coined by Carol Dweck, who's a professor of psychology at Stanford. I was lucky enough, Team Copenhagen again, were very nice to send me on to a talk of hers that was happening in Copenhagen a couple of months ago. So I heard it from her mouth. To put it briefly, people who believe that your basic abilities like intelligence, sporting or artistic talent, that they can be developed through hard work, through strategizing, through input from others. They have a growth mindset. They tend to achieve more than people with a fixed mindset who believe that your talents are kind of innate gifts that you can't change or improve very much. And the reason for that is that growth mindset people worry less about looking smart and talented and put more energy and time into becoming smarter and more skilled. So over 30 years ago, Dr. Carol Dweck and her colleagues became interested in children's attitudes to failure. They noticed that while some rebounded, others seemed devastated by even the smallest setbacks. In one study, they gave children an easy puzzle to solve, and then the option of a harder puzzle or an easy puzzle afterwards. And when they, by noticing the different choices they made and the explanations they gave, they coined these terms, fixed and growth mindset, to describe people's underlying beliefs about learning and intelligence. When people believe they can get smarter, they understand that effort can get them there. And they put in extra time and effort to learning, and they then achieve more. This is from Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin says, "What are you doing? Homework?" The girl says, "I wasn't sure I understood this chapter, so I reviewed my notes from the last chapter, and now I'm rereading this." "You do all that work?" "Well, now I understand it." "Huh, I used to think you were smart." So you can replace intelligence with any other trait or ability, and you see the same effect. But we all look at this, we all see this cartoon, and we look at that, we recognize in that girl, she shows signs of being super smart, because she understands how she can learn. But I'm also sure that all of us, at some point, and if potentially, probably in a sporting context, have seen somebody working especially hard and thought, that's because he's not that talented. She just hasn't got that innate talent. But actually, it's those people that tend to understand that relationship between effort and success, and they put more time into the learning process, and they achieve more. The view you adopt for yourself has a profound impact on the way you lead your life. So, for someone with a fixed mindset who believes they only have a certain amount of intelligence, personality, moral character, they better prove that they have a good amount to start with. And in fact, they'll be constantly trying to prove to themselves and to others that they're holding this winning hand when the whole time they might be secretly worried that they've just got this pair of 10s. And this basic belief has a whole range of damaging knock-on effects. And they're effects that are completely reframed by the growth mindset. So we've already seen that skills, basic abilities in fixed mindset, that's what you just have you have that to start with. You don't change it much. In the fixed mindset, they can be grown and developed. The main issue in the fixed mindset is looking like you've got a load, like you've won the lottery of life. In the growth mindset, the main concern is just learning and getting better constantly. Effort is the enemy of the fixed mindset for two reasons. If you are naturally brilliant, you shouldn't need to try hard. In fact, if you try hard, it kind of casts some doubt over how brilliant you are to start with. But it also takes away your excuse. So if you put in all your effort, you can never say, I could have been world champion. Challenges, they become a threat to the fixed mindset. They can potentially show a lack or a weakness somewhere. They're to be avoided. You should stick to the easy puzzles. But in the growth mindset, challenges are great. They put you out of your comfort zone. They push you. That's where you can learn the most. Feedback for the fixed mindset, again, is another threat and is likely to be perceived as criticism rather than something helpful that you can use to learn. And mistakes, well, they should never happen if you're brilliant, right? And we've all heard this expression, if at first you don't succeed. That finishes try again. That's the growth mindset version. The fixed mindset is if at first you don't succeed, you probably don't have the ability. Just pop back, there's a common misconception about growth mindset that it's just the same as effort. And effort is vital, it's key to achievement, but it's not the only thing. People need to use different strategies and to take input from other people when they're stuck. You need that full kind of repertoire of approaches to get this growth mindset benefit. It's also important to point out that nobody is all growth or all fixed mindset. Nobody is purely one or the other. We all have parts of both in us. And it can be helpful to be aware of where your fixed mindset can be triggered. This next bit is more aimed at the fencers, but for you non-fencers, you can try and reframe it into what it would mean for you. We'll just skip past that. So if you're faced with a really hard opponent or a match, do you feel anxious and just want to end it as soon as possible? I really remember that feeling, like you're losing, you just want to get out of there. That doesn't make much sense. When you encounter setbacks or when the results are not going as you want, as you hope, do you feel incompetent or defeated? Do you look for an excuse? When you receive criticism or feedback, do you get defensive, angry, or just see it as what you can learn from it? When your teammates are doing better than you, are you envious and threatened, or is that something that inspires you? So clearly we want to bring up our kids with this idea that you can always improve on your baseline traits and abilities. And one way is to show how the brain literally grows and develops new connections through hard work and through strategizing. And in addition to showing how the brain develops, researchers have noticed that teaching practice has a big impact on their students' mindsets. So the feedback and praise that teachers and parents give their children can either encourage them to choose the challenge and increase their achievement, or to opt for an easy way out. So, for example, praising a child for being smart or talented encourages a fixed mindset, whereas praising a child for their effort, for their strategies, for their progress, that cultivates a growth mindset. So this is an important message for us all to take on board. And if we're actually to truly cultivate a culture that encourages the growth mindset, we can't be sending mixed messages to our fencers about what it is we value. It's especially important for you parents out there, because you're the ones who have the most one-on-one conversations with your children about their performances. But it's also something that we all have to be aware of and aligned in as a club and as a community. It's not enough to just say that growth mindset and desire to learn is a good thing. We need to back that up with our behavior and with our feedback. So during competitive matches, during competitions, we have to praise and support the intent of actions, and good choices rather than not just the ones that score. We need to present the difficult circumstances as challenges and opportunities, and not highlight how unfair the situation is or how stupid that referee is. And as a community, there are choices we can make. We make in how to frame situations according to the fixed or growth mindset. So a bit like I just covered. So in the fixed mindset culture, a competition is the final test, whereas growth mindset, the competitions are just the best training you can find. You can never quite replicate the intensity in training. So you go to a competition, and that's where you can really push yourself and challenge yourself and learn from it. Fixed mindset culture is all about results. It's all about getting points. Learning is everything in the growth mindset. It's about working on your goals and improving. And this actually it's double-starred, because this is talking about a redefinition of success to mean giving your best and leaving nothing else out there, and a redefinition of failure to mean just not trying. Failure is just not trying and taking the easier path. Obviously, praise for winning encourages a fixed mindset. Praise for effort, attitude, and strategies. The difficult circumstance. That's just another challenge, another opportunity to test yourself. And then losing is failure. Losing is the best opportunity to learn. It's interesting to note that when we do the video analysis, if they come back and they've won 5-0, we don't watch those fights. And if they come back and they lose 5-0, those are the ones that we want to watch first. So really, they are the best learning opportunity, and they could come back, the fencers could come back happy with a 5-0 loss, because they're going to learn the most out of it. So in Trek Anton, we want to constantly hold ourselves to this growth mindset culture. And since arriving in my role in the club, this has kind of been my guiding light in everything I've introduced, all the initiatives I've introduced. How can we highlight the importance of this desire, this continual learning and development, and how can we provide more opportunities for it? Through that process of thinking about that, there formed 3 kind of foundational blocks that raise up this kind of development culture. Video review, effort and attitude, values and meaning. So, the great Trek Anton video review project. When I tell other fencing coaches and friends from other sports that we do video analysis for all of our fencers, from seniors to cadets and sometimes even pre-cadets, on almost all of their international competitions, they look at me with this kind of amazement and jealousy. At least that's what I read on their
They haven't growth mindset.
But it's a jealousy that they don't have the time to do that work themselves, and amazement at the sheer amount of information and feedback, extra information and feedback that our fencers will be getting that would otherwise be lost in this quickly fading memory. I think we're actually doing something that no other fencing club in the world is doing, with such consistent feedback and review of our fencers' performances. And it gives both the fencer and me this crystal clear view of their progress. And I've seen how motivating it can be, because the fencer also gets this clear vision of what they need to do to develop, rather than just trusting blindly in the learning process or in what their coach's word for it. That's a step ahead. And back. Effort and attitude. Coming back to that. I touched on it earlier, and I want to tell you another origin story. And again, this is about preparing for an Olympics, the Rio Olympics this time, but this time it's just the qualification process that is the focal point of our attention. So my team and I are about to begin this year-long, grueling process of qualifying, where every team competition is incredibly important in getting into the top 4 ranked European teams. Our main competition would come from Germany, and they had a 4-time world champion and an ex-Olympic champion, and Great Britain had never, in the history of fencing, been ranked above Germany. We'd also never qualified a team for the Olympics through the world ranking since they'd introduced qualification standards. So we knew that we were battling against history as well as the Germans. There's a joke in there somewhere. Maybe that's a joke enough. At the beginning of that year, we gave ourselves a 50% chance of qualifying. So, and that was kind of being optimistic, as you'd expect us to be. Because there were also some aspects that qualifying that weren't in our control, like how well the Asian teams were doing, or did in that period. So we were going to put our hearts and dreams and expectations on the line, and at best we had a 50% chance of success. And this is when our team psychologist, Danielle, stepped in and gave us another option. It was an option that didn't rely on us qualifying for the Olympics to be a success. And it turned out to not only be a good way to deal with this year-long uncertainty and pressure, but also what I think gave us the edge, made the difference in helping us achieve our mission, beat the Germans and qualify for Rio. That other option that Danielle gave us was the effort and attitude system. The result of every single team match in that year was so important to us. But we now know that having our mind on that was not going to be helpful. So instead, we spent the time to create descriptions of our best effort and attitude, to share them with our teammates. We talked about how we can communicate with each other on the piste to help us stay in that mindset of effort and attitude. And when we came off the piste, we would rate ourselves to our teammates out of 5, how close we got to our best effort and attitude descriptions. There was a short discussion. There's a 3-step plan. What was your score? This was a short discussion about why was it this or that, and what could we do better next time. The result of the fight itself was completely unimportant. All that matters was how close we got to our effort and attitude. And even if that wasn't a high score, then the only responsibility we had to our teammates was to try and make sure that the next time was a little bit better. So in the same way that when you're driving and you end up steering towards the thing that you're looking at, we found that these constant conversations around effort and attitude brought us much more focus on the things that would actually help us perform better. But the amazing thing, so we were becoming less stressed about winning or losing because that just wasn't in focus. But the amazing thing was that our scores started to go up. We were becoming increasingly consistent at giving our best effort and attitude. So what Danielle had given us was a way to go through that entire year, not qualify, and still be proud of what we'd achieved. And what she also gave us was the method by which we ended up qualifying. Last month, the Danish senior foil team beat the reigning world champions Italy in the World Cup in Tokyo. They went on to beat China, and they finished fourth. And it was an astonishing result, considering that these guys competed in their first ever senior World Cup team event 10 months prior. So I wrote to the guys on Facebook after their bronze medal match to congratulate them and to tell them how proud I was of them. And I got this response from Alexander. This was us qualifying in Paris, and we finally got a good result of the year, and then that was us having a nice time in Rio. I got this response from Alexander. Thank you, Lawrence, but just wait until you watch the Italy fight. We were all 5 out of 5 today. This HTB, that's the harder the better. That's a way of describing his best effort and attitude. There's just no way of beating a team like Italy unless you have at least 3 fencers who are all working their hardest and just intently focused on the next point. The effort and attitude system shines a spotlight on exactly that. And these guys have just shown what is possible when you have your focus in just the right place. But it's also important to point out that to beat the reigning world champions, you don't need to win every fight. And in fact, their match was very up and down. All that you need is that regardless of this previous match or the score in the fight, you just focus on the next point ahead and doing your best. And that's how these guys went from losing the first 3 fights of that match to winning in dramatic style. So most of you have probably seen the celebration video, but I made a short highlights video as well. So I'm just going to have to find it so that we can watch that as well. How many times has that been shared on? 20,000 now?
The post I have ever made with the most likes.
So that was the effort and attitude origin story. That was quite fun to make, actually. It's going. Damn you. So we're coming on finally to values and meaning. And I've already covered what I see as the meaning of sport and the value you can get from it, of developing yourself as a rounded, confident, growth mindseted individual, setting yourself up for life and everything it can throw at you. But of all the topics that I brought up today, I think this one of values and meaning is perhaps the one that could have the biggest positive impact on our fences, on the culture, and on everything. It's all about helping our athletes understand their why. Why are they turning up to training every day? Why do they spend their full weekends in cold sports halls around Europe and the world? And knowing why can help hugely with their motivation, with their direction, with having a healthy perspective on their performances. And when they have this description of what they value about sport and what they value about themselves when they're doing sport, it can give you this powerful sense of, I'm doing this because this is who I am and this is who I want to be, rather than because my coach tells me to or my parents tell me to. And it can start to guide your behavior because you have this clear vision of your best self and who you want to live up to. And it also becomes clear when you're not living up to it. All of this comes down to just living up to the values that you identify as most important in life, as consistently as possible. And sport provides the opportunities to be challenged in your choices and to be led on a different, easier path. So, do you live according to what you've chosen that you value, to your best you, or do you choose that other, easier option? We were at a World Cup in San Jose, whilst I was still competing, when Melda asked if I would consider the role of Sportschef at Trekanten. I think it was a bit of a surprise to both of us that I said yes so quickly. Not that I said yes, but
I know you asked what is it about? And I said, I don't really know.
Yeah. Well, it was just not something on my radar, maybe, and not yours quite either, but it was an offer that was just perfectly timed. And I couldn't have imagined back then what this role would come to mean for me. And in fact, it gave me a meaning that I could take into my life beyond my fencing career. From the very start, I've been welcomed into a community which is unlike any other that I've experienced before. One that truly cares for and about its members. And even in the Danish forening system, which is all about creating communities to create champions, Trekanten is a shining example of a club that creates a community first. That's why you have volunteers who dedicate huge amounts of their time to running and developing the club, and we're sitting in evidence of that right now. You have parents who share planning and responsibilities for their children, for each other's children, and you have Melda, who is everybody's big brother, as well as head trainer, and will even do your history assignments sometimes if you ask him nicely. But this club embodies the idea that we're here to create great people first and great fencers second. And I want to tell you today that Trekanten has its priorities spot on. Sport would be near meaningless if it didn't develop the individuals and the communities around it. But on top of that, creating a positive, supportive and aligned environment is precisely the best way to create champions. And not just champions, but those who are well balanced and responsible and have a well-developed social conscience, champions that a whole community can be proud of. And what I've described for you today is how we can bring about a shared language and a further structure to what already sits at the heart of Trekanten culture. I found an alignment right from the beginning between the club and my various thoughts about elite sport. And I was given the freedom and the support to put these ideas into practice, which is why these last couple of years have felt a lot like coming home for me. So I've been honoured to be a part of this special community and even to do my bit to help develop it. And I feel a great sense of gratitude to the club that has helped develop me in line with who I want to be. So there's a great momentum in the club at the moment. And the real purpose of this talk was to share my vision with all of you who are so pivotal to its continued progress. And especially as I move further over into the Federation in the new year, and I don't have quite so much time to put into driving it, the club needs all of us to pull together to continue the amazing work that's been going on over the last few years. And if we are all on board with this mission, then I have no doubt that there are some very exciting times ahead for Trek Hansen. Thank you.